welcome to another River Landing conversation. My name is Jim Kalaki. I'm here with Helen Shields, and we have our distinguished guest for today is Rody Gibbs. Rody, you will know, is a resident here and also happens to be president of the resident council. So welcome, Rody.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are delighted to have you all join us. And I should say at this stage, thank you to those of you who have kindly sent us either notes or feedback or past conversation along as we've met around campus. It's been very gratifying as we conclude the spring series today. We will be back in the fall, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we're finished this conversation today. So Rody, again, welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and it's an honor. I mean, I really do feel honored to have been asked to participate in this. It's mighty nice. Thank you.
Welcome. Helen?
Rody, we know that people call you Rody,
Right.
but you have a very interesting background to your name. Could you tell us about that and how you got it and so forth?
Great. Yeah, all my life I've had to spell my name. My first name is Robert, but middle name is Rodolph, like Rudolph, but with an O. So I've always had to spell that for everybody. But I was named after my two grandfathers. One was Robert Aiden Gibbs, and my other grandfather was Gerhard Bunkemeyer. He was German. So my mother's maiden name was Bunkemeyer. So I guess I'm glad I got the Rodolph part. It's easier to spell. But no, it's been interesting having that name. And through school, I was always called Rodolph. I was never called Robert or Bob, which is interesting. Even my classmate, at least to my face, called me Rodolph. Except at Christmas time, it turned to Rudolph, which was fine. But when Nancy and I got married, she's the one that started calling me Rody. I remember the first time I went home with her to the Eastern Shore of Virginia. Her grandmother, and I was, about 20 years old, and walked in the door and she said, "Well, this must be Rupert." She was afraid she couldn't pronounce Rodolph, but so Rupert came out. And then she started calling me Mr. Gibbs at like 20 years old. So but it's been interesting to do that, to have a name like that. I'm proud of it. There's not too many Rodolphs around.
Indeed, indeed.
So you would not change your name then? You would keep that name?
You bet. I would. We have a son that we didn't want to have a junior, so we have a Gregory Rodolph Gibbs, and another son, Jeffrey Chandler Gibbs. Nancy's maiden name is Chandler, so they seem to fit. And we now have a grandson that his middle name is Rodolph also. So at least the Rodolph will be carried on for a few more generations, hopefully.
Floating through the generations.
Right.
How nice. Right. So Rody, where were you born and where did you grow up?
Great. There are a lot of people here from Carolina Trace near Sanford. Mm-hmm. And I tell them that I'm a charter member of there because I was born in Sanford.
Oh.
But, that was way before Carolina Trace. But, and the little house that we lived in Sanford on Vance Street is still there. It's turned into a flower shop now, and I think some of the people from Carolina Trace remember seeing that house. But family moved to Greensboro when I was about 2.5. So I don't remember much about Sanford, but grew up in Greensboro in the Sunset Hills area, near Women's College, which is UNCG now. At that age, I didn't realize what was there, a few blocks down the road with all these women down there. But grew up near Lake Daniel and Buffalo Creek area, and rode bikes everywhere and played down at the creek. My next door neighbor is a couple of years older than I am or was. And we used to float bottles down the creek and throw dirt clods at them to break them up like we were bombing ships. And then we'd go wading in the creek, and you wonder how we came. We didn't get cut up, so I don't know what happened. We were bad aim, I guess. But it was a wonderful place to grow up because, things were open. We could go down anytime and play. There were several little woods around that we could play. But when it was time for me to come home, I could hear this whistle. My mother would go out on the front porch and blow a whistle, and I could hear it down at the park, if you will. So I knew it was time to come home. But it was a great place. I could walk to school. I walked to elementary school and junior high, and even to high school from that location. So it was kind of neat.
What was your high school in Greensboro?
I'm sorry?
What was your high school in Greensboro?
It was Greensboro Senior High at the time.
Which became Grimsley.
Which became Grimsley, that's correct. Yeah. They had built Page High School. And I was actually at Central Junior High, which was behind Greensboro College, across the railroad track. That school is no longer there, but one of my best friends there kept talking to me about going to West Point with him, and in the 7th grade. And he was a wonderful guy. He was very active in the YMCA, and anyway, he had battlefields set up, and I had an electric train, and things like that. But he was a great. When we graduated from the 9th grade at that time in junior high school, he had to go to Page High School, and I went to Greensboro, and so we got separated a little bit. And at that age, you don't really keep up with people. But I learned that he dropped out of high school and did get his appointment to West Point and graduated. And sorry to say that he was in Vietnam about a month and a day and was killed.
Wow.
So, but he was a good friend. Good.
People here, prior to coming to River Landing, have lived a lot of different places. Take us through where you were prior to coming here.
Well, just before we came, we lived in High Point. I ended up going to High Point College. Living in Greensboro was a day student. So I wasn't on campus. I only stayed on campus one semester. But, and Nancy, my wife, had come from Hampton, Virginia, down to Greensboro College. And she was on a work scholarship at Grace Methodist Church, where I grew up. So that's where we met. And she graduated in December of '63. And she was the first in her family to go to college and to graduate from college. So, and we had, I guess I need to back up a little bit how we started dating, but anyway, her whole family came down for her graduation, and she actually got 2 degrees the same day. While they were there, we decided we'd have a wedding. So she graduated from college, and we got married the same day.
Wow. Busy day.
Yeah, it was. But I was a junior, still a junior in college. So we had another year and a half to go in school. But from there, I went to work with my dad in a machine shop, metal stamping business. If you're familiar with clipboards, in Industries of the Blind, we made the metal clips for the clipboards. And the Industry of the Blind would assemble those and put them on the boards, which was quite interesting. And if you've ever seen a what they call a progressive die with a coil of steel coming through a die, each stage in it. And then at the end, the finished product comes out. And that was fascinating to watch. I've actually got some movies of that. But, you know, that was my dad's passion. And as it ended up, we went to work with a company in High Point, or I did, called EAC, Electronic Accounting Card Company. And they produced the punch cards for the IBM card readers and key punch machines back in the early 70s. And they ended up moving us to Richmond, and we lived there almost 10 years. But, and that got us in, or got me into the computer environment. I wasn't selling computers, but sold the supplies, you know, the magnetic tapes and the disc packs and cards and stuff like that. And so that's how I kind of got into that marketplace. But after about 10 years, we came back to High Point and ended up starting our own business. I had been selling for other companies and kind of decided, well, if I can sell for them, maybe I can sell for myself. So we had some good relationship with some vendors of product that I had sold. And so we decided to start our business, and actually started in our house in High Point. And, Nancy was taking a class in Asheboro at Randolph Tech in interior design, but I needed help, you know, typing letters and quotes and things like that. We didn't have computers at that time, and so she started working for me, unpaid. And of course, in the beginning, I was unpaid. But she started typing on at the dining room table. And we finally bought a desk and put it up in our bedroom. And I was in a guest room, so that's how we started our business. And we finally moved down to the basement. We had a two-story house with a full basement. And so I tell people when we moved down, we moved up. So we kind of separated offices and actually hired the first person to come to work for us in our house. She came to work for us in our basement, which was pretty neat. But this was the early 70s. Well, we started the business in 84. But the IBM architecture with the computers, they had a big mainframe and controllers that you could connect up to 32 CRTs to, you know, from offices. And, well, they used coax cable to run from the office back to that controller, and then a big cable going into the mainframe. And every time they made a move, they'd get cables all tangled up and unidentified and all of that. So I designed a patch panel for them. And so a patch panel, you have connectors coming in, the cables on one side from the offices and cables on the other side going to the controller. And that's how we got started, selling patch panels.
Wow, fascinating.
But a cousin of mine was in the but commercial art business. And so we had him design a logo for us. And Nancy named the company. We were in the kitchen. She was cooking or at the sink or whatever. And she said, I've got it. We're going to call our company Data Connections, you know, with the cables coming in. So that was perfect. And my cousin said, you know, you've got to look like you're IBM. People don't have to know you're working out of your basement. So he designed a nice logo for us. And, but anyway, it was a good ride. We had a good time.
Wow, I love these stories about how, particularly about how names come together. Because you think, you know, you get used to them after a while and think, but there's often some very interesting twist, and Data Connections makes perfect sense given given what you're describing.
Then we actually, we started an installation division of that company doing wiring, premise wiring in buildings for telephones and for computer systems. And we ended up designing a pulley device. Because, you go up above a recessed ceiling like this, and you pull cable across. Mm-hmm. Well, you're dragging it across, beams and everything. So we came up with a pulley system, and actually were able to get a patent on it. Being a small company, we really didn't have the resources to merchandise like we should have or could have. But anyway, we had that, and with all those controllers that we were talking about, companies in a room like this, if they'd have all these controllers sitting around on the floor, and they said, we need to conserve space. Is there any way to stack them, to put one on top of the other? So I designed a stacking frame, if you will, and we shipped those all over the country.
You're prompting my next question was, what was your service? Or were you servicing countrywide or more regionally?
Kind of our local territory, if you will, was North and South Carolina and Southern Virginia. Yeah. And but the stacking frames, actually it was Duke Power that wanted something to stack their controllers. So I designed this thing and had a prototype built, took it down to Charlotte. They liked it, but they decided to do something else. So they didn't buy any of the stacking frames. But we had it, so I took it to some other companies, actually Pilot Life Insurance Company, which is now part of Lincoln, turned into Jefferson Pilot and then Lincoln Financial. But, and they bought them. And so we ended up advertising in some trade magazines and actually shipped those stacking frames all over the country. We even had an outlet in England selling them at one time. Wow. So it was kind of exciting, I should say, to do that.
Indeed. Rody, you've given this lovely tracking, if you will, of your work life. And I know that you have some hobbies. At least you have hobbies now. I don't know if you ever had time for hobbies when you were working. Talk a little bit about those.
I've always been in sales positions, and that's interesting too, because I had a conversation with one of the senior salesmen at Control Data Corporation, and I said, we're salesmen. He said, no, we're not. We're representatives, and he's right. Yeah. I can represent something, but to sell you something that you don't need or want. That's not me. Mm-hmm. If you've got a need and I've got a product that can help you, I can represent that to you. But I forget where we were going with that.
Well, your hobbies and your life.
Traveling so much, it wasn't right for me to come home on a Thursday night or Friday night and then take all day Saturday or a good part of Saturday to play golf. Mm-hmm. So we as a family started playing tennis. And so we have two sons, and so we could all play tennis together. And so I played tennis a lot longer than I have golf. But now I've got more time, and I'm trying to learn how to play golf. And pickleball now. The pickleball here is
that's a big deal here too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'd like to talk with you about one of our favorite subjects, yours and mine, and that's music. So tell us something about your background in that and what types of music you like and what you've done with your life in music.
I've tried over the years to play instruments. I have two older sisters, and they both took piano, so it was natural for me to take piano. But as it turned out, I'd much rather be outside playing ball or something, and I didn't like to practice. So my teacher finally said, Rodolph, I think it's time for you to find something else to do. But as a matter of fact, I've got recordings of 2 recitals that I gave. You know, I'm going to play the big bass drum now. But it was Vassar Studios in Greensboro. And he had a recording studio, so that's how we ended up with actually vinyl records of our recitals. But I even played the violin, if you can believe that. I can't believe it, but from the 3rd grade to the 8th grade. And how I did that, I don't know. But I still like the violin. I wish I could. I've tried the guitar. I'd like to play like John Denver and Jim Croce, but I want to do it now. You know? But the Gibbs family have always been singers, and it was suggested to me when I was in high school to join the high school choir. So I did, and the director, Eula Tuttle, there, and she was an interesting gal. She was an older lady, but she smoked a pipe also, which was kind of interesting. But anyway, the junior year, we were able to try out for a quartet that she called the Queen's Men. It was usually just senior boys that could do that, but she didn't like the blend of the voices, and so she allowed juniors to try out. And as it turned out, 4 of us juniors became the Queen's Men. So we were together 2 years in a quartet, which was loads of fun. The only regret is that we never recorded anything. So, but anyway, that was a lot of fun. But I've sung in church choirs, and of course I'm in the chorus here now, and still enjoy singing.
How nice.
But the songs, of course I like just about any kind of music, but I particularly like some of the John Denver's music. You know, you listen to the lyrics, the words, and the music. But his song, Annie's Song, I guess, is one of my favorites. Because I love nature, love the national parks. But that song just speaks a lot to me because it has to do with loving somebody, you know, somebody filling up your senses just like nature does. And I guess a lot of us, all of us, I guess, have been very fortunate to have somebody to love like that. And what's special about that too, knowing that you're loved by somebody. Yeah. It's wonderful. Wow. Jim Croce's song, Time in a Bottle, too, is nice. I like that. I just wish I could play them.
Rody, here's my favorite question of the series is the 3 people in time, if all the details were sorted out, that you would love to have a meal with or have a chat with, either together or separately.
Right.
Who might they be and why?
Well, you know, I've thought a lot about that. And of course, everybody has so many people they would like to do that with. But with my German heritage, I guess, which mother and her family just never talked about much. And I don't know if it's because they just didn't know. But I would love to talk with my great-great-grandfather, Bunkemeyer, who migrated to this country in about 1850-something, I think. But just to know what brought him here, what his life was like in Germany, and how he came to want to come to America. And of course, the Gibbs, my great-great-grandfather Gibbs, the Gibbs family is traced back to two families on the Mayflower. So it'd be interesting to talk with the Allertons and the Warrens from the Mayflower to see what brought them here. Was it religious concerns or economic or whatever? You know, it would be neat to know about them.
Interesting. Wow.
And I'd certainly like to spend more time with my parents, too.
Neat.
Well, tell us about a river landing experience, or more than one, that's happened to you that maybe you didn't expect.
Well, everything at River Landing has just been wonderful. I didn't think I was ready to come, but Amy Rosen convinced me that it was time. Don't put it off, and thank goodness we did. I asked her one time, I said, how many times can I say no? And you can see her now putting her hands on her hips and saying, Rody, you know. But there's really no big surprises here, because we knew it was a great place to come. We had looked at several other retirement communities, and I had played golf here when it was an 18-hole golf course, Sandy Ridge. And with the golf here and then the other amenities and the people here, it's just amazing. So the biggest surprise, I guess, is that I may have been asked to do this, or to become part of the resident council. And that's been a lot of fun and a very growing experience. And then being asked to be chair of that council. There are a lot of good people on the council, and I'll put a plug in for the council. You know, put your name in the hat. I mean, you'll get to know people and know the staff here. The staff is just awesome. They're just incredible. The passion and concern they have for all of the residents, all of us, and how they've guided us through this past year. Is being in meetings with them and knowing their deep felt concern for everybody is amazing.
Yeah.
They're great people.
Absolutely.
Everybody here is. You know, we've made the choice to come, and it's the best choice we could have made.
Just say a little bit more maybe about the council, particularly for people that are newer and may not have heard that much about it. And how do you put your hat in the ring?
Right.
And when?
Right. Just tell somebody. No, the council was started back in 2004, I understand. And it's made up of 8 residents with 4 rotating off every year. So 4 new people come on every year. And those people are elected by the residents. And we have a resident association here that everybody here is a member of and part of. So we act as more of a sounding board, if you will, for the administration. They come to us with things and say, what do you think? How's that going to fit in or whatever? And we can go to them with ideas. We're not problem solvers. So if you've got something wrong or, you know, something you're unhappy about, the best thing to do is go directly to the administration, because they've got basically an open door situation. So they want you to come to them so they can handle it, you know, personally with you and quickly and efficiently. Rather than taking it to the council, we meet once a month, and then kind of puts us in the middle. Like I say, we don't solve problems, but the administration are the ones that do that. But to put your name in the hat, there's a campaign each year, and that's coming up pretty soon. The notices will be sent out that if you're interested in being on the council, to indicate your interest and of course, your name and contact information. And we kind of go through and interview everybody. And then the council comes up with basically 4 that they might recommend. But at the association meeting, which is usually in January, it's an annual meeting, there can be nominations from the floor. It's a great experience, and I urge anybody and everybody to participate in that if they can. It's cool.
I endorse your recommendation, because Rody and I actually met, well, I think initially while we were both members of the council a couple of years ago, and it's a terrific learning experience.
Absolutely.
And you get another take on how this place runs.
Yes.
And it's
I mean, if you get a very, I guess, a new perspective and a deep appreciation for the administrators.
Yeah.
You know, Tom and Lisa and Cindy and their staff, they're all, I just can't say enough about them. We're just so fortunate to have them here.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
As you were anticipating this chat and conversation today, was there a question that you thought we might ask you that we didn't, and you'd like to tell us?
We talked about that earlier, and I really can't think of anything, really, because I knew that my name would certainly be a topic. No, I'd just like to say to thank you for including me in this. It's been my pleasure, and I hope it hasn't been too boring for
No.
for everyone. But it's been wonderful to share my life. You know, we all have stories to tell, and a lot of you have heard a lot of this from me already. But I feel honored to have been asked to do this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Rody. And this concludes our program for today and this series of River Landing Conversations. We're taking the summer off, along with the rest of furl. As you've probably heard, there will be no formal furl classes this summer. The furl group is meeting actually in about a week or so to start its planning for the fall. And I'm delighted to tell you that we already have at least half a dozen courses either on the books or about to be on the books for the fall. And it looks already like a really very interesting variety and set of choices. We also anticipate continuing these conversations in the fall. So if you have ideas for people to join the conversation, for yourself or others, please don't hesitate to let us know. The names of the furl work group are fairly well broadcast around the place, and any of us will be more than happy to visit about furl or about course ideas or about these conversations.
Could I say one more thing?
Of course.
I would just like to say that to thank you, Jim, for what you do. I mean, you are awesome yourself, and what you've done.
Whoa!
What you've
Keep
done
talking,
with
Rody.
this furl thing is I mean, you're amazing, and thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you so
bet.
much. The check's in the mail. While we're giving thanks, Helen, it's just been a delight having these conversations with you, and thank you for joining in.
Two of my favorite friends here too, absolutely.
And Brian, who's off to the right, busily plugging and unplugging and making mics work and so forth. Thank you, and thanks to Destiny as well, on down the hall from you, for chipping in from time to time. That concludes our program, and we will look forward to seeing you in the fall after the hot weather has passed. So, good afternoon.